From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine with Nick Beres.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine, and Nick Beres here on a Monday. I hope you had a good weekend. We're back at it again today on what may be a very busy news day. And we're going to get into a topic this morning that we did talk about maybe a couple months ago, and it's something that's been around a long time now, the whole idea of cryptocurrency and how it works. And now you've got federal lawmakers taking a closer look at things like Bitcoin and the like and regulating it further. Now, if you're sitting there going, Nick, this is way beyond me. I deal in money, and if I invest, I've got stocks. I don't even know. I understand where you're coming from. I'm the same way, a little confused by all this. But in this marketplace where we have rising prices, where we have folks looking for places to put their money, where we have interest rates going up, cryptocurrency, for better or for worse, is something that's here to stay, and an awful lot of people are involved in it. What we're going to do is try to get more of a primer. I thought last time our guest came on, he did just a terrific job of, I think, explaining some of the real basics to us. Again, if you're someone who's already up to speed, the beginning of the program may be a bit slow for you, but stick around, because as we make our way through the topic, we are going to talk about some of what's happening right now, and that's some of the sweeping oversight and how it will be regulated moving forward, because you've probably heard the stories. There are some people that are cryptocurrency millionaires one day, and the next day something crazy happens and they're broke. There's a problem with a system when it happens that quickly and how that is, and that's what lawmakers are looking at. But before we get into all that, I want to kind of give us that primer again. And Professor Joshua White is with us from over at Vanderbilt, and he is really good at explaining a complex topic. That's why we wanted to have you on again, because last time you came on, we didn't get a ton of calls, but I had a lot of feedback from people who followed the show that said, yeah, I think I have a little bit better understanding of what this is all about. What percentage, I don't know if you have a handle on this, what percentage of Americans you feel are really involved with cryptocurrency these days?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. There's, 2021 was sort of a breakthrough year for cryptocurrency. Okay. The percentage of Americans, I think Pew Research shows that either transacted or invested in crypto, something like 17%.
17%. It's more than I thought.
Yeah, so you're talking 40 million Americans being involved in this market. And there's some demographics that are really interesting. Younger Americans, the age group 18 to 29, something like 40% of those have participated in this market. And marginalized communities. We've seen minorities really embrace cryptocurrency as a way of participating in financial markets that they haven't done so, or we don't always see in the stock market. So cryptocurrency and digital assets have this financial inclusion aspect that's pretty exciting.
Okay, and listen, we're going to get into more of the details of regulation or lack of it in a moment. But all right, just for some of our viewers and for me again, because if someone asked me, Nick, give me a good definition of cryptocurrency. I mean, I know what a dollar bill is when I hold it. If I have a Bitcoin or some of the other forms of cryptocurrency, how is that valued like a dollar bill, which it's very clear. I've got $1, I can go spend it, or, what's your best way of explaining that to someone?
Yeah, and this is why it's so difficult, because cryptocurrencies is your comparison to a dollar that's currency or money, and they really encompass more than one thing. And so it starts with the blockchain. And so the blockchain is this digital ledger where you can verify transactions using blocks. Each block has a digital timestamp of the previous transaction. So your example of spending $1, if you have $1 in your wallet, you don't know who spent that dollar the last time and the time before, but eventually there's a serial number at the bottom of the dollar, and so you know that it was put out by Treasury and it's backed by the government. With digital assets, or with cryptocurrencies, they use the blockchain to verify transactions, so we can see where that, if you're using Bitcoin, which is one popular cryptocurrency, we can see everybody that's transacted with that Bitcoin and who owns the Bitcoin currently.
Now you talked about how there's a serial number on the dollar bill that proves that it came from the US government, which means it backs the money. Of course, we all know now American dollar currency is not backed by gold in Fort Knox anymore. But I mean, the idea that that dollar bill is backed by our federal government. So a cryptocurrency, Bitcoin or something like that, would have been created not by the federal government, but by some individual entrepreneur as I'm creating this. And what gives it value?
Right. So the value has to come from the demand side. It has to come from
Why would I want
investors.
something like that? Okay, so you created a Bitcoin. Why do I care? Unless I think, well, if I get a Bitcoin from you, you have a reputation because maybe you're someone famous and someone else would be willing to give me money for that Bitcoin. Why on earth would I want that?
Right. So there's a couple reasons. Number one, you think that it might go up in value. So you look at it as an investment and you think if I buy a Bitcoin now for a certain price, I think it's going to be worth more in the future because there's a limited supply of Bitcoins on the blockchain. And if there's a limited supply and demand increases, then the laws of economics will push the prices up.
Okay.
The second reason, would you think, is what can I use that Bitcoin for? And there's some that are predicting that Bitcoin could potentially replace the dollar in international transactions. So now in the business world, when you're even transacting outside the US, most companies transact in US dollars because it's sort of the global currency. And so it could be the case that Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency could potentially replace that. We don't know that that would be the case.
Wow.
But it could potentially replace it.
So, and I think when you were on last, we talked, there are some countries that have completely transitioned, right, to Bitcoin in terms of, they've gotten rid of their native currency for this, or what transition?
Right.
Was
so
it Taiwan or?
El Salvador.
El Salvador, okay. Well, I thought some of the Asian countries, but go ahead.
Yeah, they've really tried to embrace Bitcoin, but now is where you go back to your first point, in that Bitcoin's prices have been very volatile.
Yeah.
And so this transition, if it happens, could expose these countries to a lot of price volatility in their currency, which then leads to inflation on the consumers. And so when Bitcoin came out, a lot of people pitched it as digital gold. And they said, you know, this is a safe haven that we can invest in, and the prices won't change like stocks or other securities. And that hasn't been the case. It's been very volatile. And in fact, the prices have sort of mirrored what we see in the stock market right now. So I think that narrative that Bitcoin is an inflation hedge or digital gold is out. And so we might not see countries adopting it like we had thought in the beginning.
Okay, so, gosh, my head is spinning on some of just the basics. All right, you have countries looking at maybe doing this, and it's volatile. So it's having the same reaction as the stock market. Would you consider Bitcoin right now? I go to my investment counselor, and sometimes, you know, we decide, depending on what the market is, that we'll invest in more conservative, safer investments, which potentially stay stable but don't bring as large of a return if things go well. Is Bitcoin more of a high-risk investment, or is it like the stock market where there are some Bitcoins that are very stable, like a computer stock, or some that are real, high risk and return?
Yeah, and most of them have been very high risk. And so that, you talked about your retirement fund. If you're going to invest, you need to think about how much risk you can tolerate in your portfolio.
Sure, right, exactly.
But also how that asset might change in prices versus the other assets in your portfolio. We know you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
Don't
Diversify.
Go out. You want to diversify. And so one of the allures of digital assets or Bitcoin is that maybe it provides a diversification benefit, but that volatility, that change in its price, needs to be uncorrelated with other assets for you to have that diversification benefit. And so for now, the fact that it's moving up and down like other maybe growth stocks, startup companies that are not going to generate a lot of profit for several years, then that diversification benefit hasn't been realized as much.
Okay, so give me, if you would, just a real basic, if I decided, and I called you and said, can you help me out? I want to invest in some cryptocurrency, okay? So the process, how do I go about doing it? Where do I go to the broker? How do I pay for it if I want to buy some cryptocurrency?
Okay.
How does it work?
So you would need to, your money right now is in dollars.
Yep.
And so they refer to that as fiat currency.
Okay. And
you're going to need to convert your fiat currency to digital currency.
So do I go online and I go to what?
Yeah, so an established company or exchange like Coinbase is typically where you would go. So you would open an account with Coinbase, and you would deposit your fiat currency.
Maybe what, we want to start with like $500.
Okay, $500. So you would deposit $500.
Okay.
And then Coinbase has a number of cryptocurrencies that they trade, and they show you what the exchange rates are, and they change in real time. And you can convert your fiat or dollar currency to cryptocurrency. And so now you hold that on a Coinbase account.
Okay, so would I decide to invest in one by maybe checking, are there brokers, or how would I know which cryptocurrency maybe I would like to invest in.
Yeah, so that's where, and as we get to it in a little bit, this new introduced bill is going to help. It's going to help with the financial education. But within platforms like Coinbase, they have information on each cryptocurrency that tries to describe, what does the token represent? What is its historical price movements? So you'd want to know, why are you investing in this cryptocurrency?
What would be an example of one that someone like me might be interested in? I know you don't know me that well, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I think Bitcoin and Ethereum are the two biggest.
Okay.
50% of the value of all cryptocurrencies are held within those two, with Bitcoin being the really biggest. So I think if you were starting out, I would, don't want to provide investment advice, but if you go with a much larger, well-known cryptocurrency, then perhaps those are the ones that would be.
Are there different currencies
volatile.
Under Bitcoin? I would say, okay, I have my $500. I'm going to Bitcoin. I want to buy $500 worth of cryptocurrency from Bitcoin.
Right, so you'll buy a fraction of Bitcoin. And so Coinbase will show you or credit you as a fraction of a Bitcoin in your account.
And then if I buy that and I hold on to it for a week and I can check it every day, and as you said, it can be volatile, that could go up to the point where I'm like, I've made some money, I could turn around and sell it right off the bat, or I could look the next day and it could be worthless.
Right. Right. And
now, that can happen with high-risk stocks and bonds too, of course. So
correct. And it's been very volatile. And so the only thing that I would expect is that the price will change, whether it goes up or down. We don't know. Prices have mostly been coming down on both cryptocurrencies and stocks recently, but that could also be an opportunity for prices to go up in the future.
To go up. Listen, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about NFTs. We're going to take some phone calls. We've got James and others. I know many of you probably know far more about this than I do. Maybe you don't, and you have a general question, but call in and we'll get into that. And then I think a very important thing that's new that we'll talk about with our guests since you've last been on, of course, Josh, is the whole idea of regulation or like you said, education, or how you get information to make the decision to invest. And someone needs to keep an eye on this, because I would think I would be what I would describe as a pigeon. And someone could very easily take me for Bitcoin because I truly don't really have an understanding of it the way I should. And I don't like the idea of investing in something I don't understand. We'll take a break, be back with your phone calls and more with our fine guest right after this.